Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Kyra and today I'm bringing to you a brand new tag created by Allie Glines and Samantha March here on YouTube. Now, I can't quite determine what this tag is supposed to be called, the palette tag maybe, because both ladies put something different in their title. So this is the palette tag and let's just get into it. I love tag videos, but I especially love tags about eyeshadow. So the first prompt is my newest palette, and that is the Natasha Denona Mini Retro palette. I can't ever remember if it's Retro Mini or Mini Retro, but it is the Mini Retro palette. Loving this. I am seriously missing this palette during my Shop My Stash month, using only the products that I would have run out and replace if all of my makeup disappeared. Wow, the words are not rolling out of my mouth today. But I do love this palette. I can't wait to get back to it in June. But it is my newest palette, and to be honest, I don't think I have any palettes on my wish list at the moment. ATM. Next is my oldest palette, and if you've been around for a little while on my channel, you may know which one this is. I talk about this and the story behind it before, but it is the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette. This was my first high-end non-drugstore, and you know, like quite huge compared to other palettes. I mean, I used to buy like those little Almay eyeshadows where they have the 3 different shades in the shape of an eye. You know what I'm saying? I still love the smell though. But anyhow, this is my oldest palette. This is where the obsession began. This is the origin of my eyeshadow collection and obsession, and I still love it. I had this in last month in April, right? Yes, April. I had this in my Shop My Stash because we shopped our stash for peachy vibes, and I can't think of any more peachy vibes than this. I really love this shade Luscious. I love Bless Her Heart and Nectar. This is just a really nice neutral palette for me, and I love it still. It's getting a little rickety feeling though. There are 2 palettes that are tied for my most expensive palettes, and they are, as you might assume, from Natasha Denona. I have the Gold palette and the Lila palette. I did get the Lila palette first, and I've probably gotten the most use out of this one. Probably can see that I have some dips going on in some shades in here, and I still really love this palette. I'm thinking I want to get this into a Shop My Stash soon. And then of course the Gold palette, which is stunning, but I definitely feel like I haven't gotten enough use out of, looks like this. I really am excited to pull this in. I'd like to pull this in for Shop My Stash in early summer here coming up. So there's that one. It's still very special to me. Both of these were gifts from my husband, and that's because they're $129, and I, in my right mind, couldn't spend that. But my husband loves to give and give generously, so there's those. My most affordable eyeshadow palettes are only $3, and there are 2 of them, and they are the e.l.f. and they are the e.l.f. bite-size eyeshadow palettes. I have Rosewater and Pumpkin Pie. I always want to say Pumpkin Spice. Maybe it's because it's ingrained into me. This is what they look like. I purchased this one myself, and my daughter purchased this one for me, and I just love these. These are every bit as good as any other shadow that I could pull from my collection. In fact, probably better than quite a few eyeshadows that I have in my collection, and I would like to have more of these. Specifically, Cream and Sugar is on my list just because I think it would be nice to travel with, and I also think it would be nice to pair with the 2 that I already have based on the mattes that are in there and whatnot. And then I feel like these would be like more of a complete like travel type collection, if that makes any sense. Everyday palette was a hard one for me, but ultimately I decided that my everyday palette would be a palette that I could use for any day. Not just every day, but any day I might encounter it. Light makeup, no makeup, glam makeup, smoky makeup, date makeup, all the makeup. You guessed it, it's the Persona Identity palette. I love this palette. I use the absolute snot out of it. This is the first palette I would run right out and repurchase, and therefore it's in my Shop My Stash for this month. But yeah, I mean, this is the palette. I can use it for everything. I like it for every day. Again, I like it for glam, no makeup. I love either some of these shimmers or even some of the mattes just all over the eyelid and buffed up in the crease, and I'm on my way. There's just nothing that this palette can't do for me, so that's why I dubbed my everyday palette. So, most colorful, kind of a tricky task for me. I looked through, I kind of went through a few, but ultimately I decided on the Norvina Volume 2 palette, and overall the Norvina collection palettes, I have 1 through 3. No, I don't think I'm going to get 4. But to me, this has like the most variety of color out of each individual palette that I own. Overall, I have a crap ton of colorful shadows in my collection, and I have quite a few colorful palettes. I think the second runner-up to this one would have been my Violet Voss Flamingo palette, but ultimately I just felt like this was more colorful, more vibrant. You have quite a few like fluorescent shades in here. So again, I dubbed my most colorful palette, but I have a lot of colorful palettes in my collection, so it was kind of a tricky thing. And like I said, overall, I think all of my Norvina collection palettes are the most colorful palettes in my collection. So smallest palettes in my collection are again taken up by the e.l.f. bite-sized palettes. These do have 3.5 grams of product in them, and you know, that's not very much compared to even this little Lorac palette here with Rachel Zoe. This has, what did I say, 4.8 grams of product in here versus one of these has 3.5. So I mean, these can be deceiving. I'm assuming, you know, the fact that everybody and their grandma's cousin's dog has these palettes or is loving on these palettes or buying these palettes, I think we're going to start seeing people hit pan on these pretty soon. But who cares? They're $3. They're a fantastic formula, and you know, it's less product to go to waste if you're a crazy palette collector like I am. Biggest palette, by far, this palette takes the cake. I tried to pan this palette. I didn't. It's the Morphe and Jaclyn Hill palette. I did hit pan on 6 shades, something like that. In fact, I still have my June goals from last year. Anyhow, this is definitely my biggest palette because it does have 56.2 grams of product in here. I mean, that's got to be twice, 3 times the size of some of my other bigger palettes. I don't know how people pan this palette. I've seen people do it, but you know, it's my biggest palette. I don't care. I love this palette still. I think I need to drag this back out again soon because I haven't really touched it since I stopped panning it last year, but always going to be the reigning queen for biggest palette, and I'd be really surprised if I don't see other people answering the same thing in their version of this video. Best memory. This memory has dethroned another memory. But just recently, and this is the 3rd time you will see this little palette, but my 12-year-old, my newly 12-year-old daughter, Hannah, purchased this little pumpkin pie palette for me from Target with her own money. She has recently, within the last year, started being able to walk to the Target that's less than a mile from our home by herself, with her cell phone, letting me know when she crosses the street, let me know when she gets there, let me know when she leaves, let me know when she crosses the street, let me know when she gets home. But she did go ahead and pick this up for me with her own money, and not only is this a really gorgeous palette, but it's just so near and dear to my heart that she would not only purchase a palette with her own money, but that she would pick this particular palette for her mama. And I love this. I absolutely love this. This bronze shade right here, if I start swatching, I'll be here all day. But this bronze shade right here is everything.
Take your dog and go. Thank you very much.
Next is Worth the Hype, and this palette is 100% worth the hype. I slept on this palette for so long. I almost missed my chance. I don't believe that this is available any longer. It is the ColourPop Dream Street palette with Kathleen lights. I really love this palette, legitimately. It is such a pretty palette. Again, for me this is pretty neutral, but I love that you have a few pops of color. I love that you have this duochrome down here. I have no doubt I will pan it someday. And I really, really love this brown down there, which sounds so amazing and interesting, right? But it's just the perfect deeper brown that has just a hint of plum to it, and I really, really like that because I have brown eyes. Anything that has any inkling of purple in it looks really good on me, and I think actually purple looks pretty good on most people. So anyhow, this one I think is 100% worth the hype. I specifically didn't buy this because of the hype for a long, long time. Finally pulled the trigger, and I am oh so glad that I did because this is worth every bit of the hype. Not worth the hype. This was a toughie because this palette was actually a beautiful gift from a friend, and that has nothing to do with the fact that I think that these palettes are not worth the hype. I don't think any of the palettes in this line are worth the hype. And not only that, every single person I see that owns one of these is either decluttering it or telling us how bad it is. And that's the Huda Beauty Emerald Obsessions. Again, I think this applies to all of the Obsession palettes. And I still have this. I still keep this. One, because it is beautiful. There are shades in here that are beautiful, but there are shades in here that really aren't. And you know, I have hard pan on one of these. I just don't think it is very good quality. Overall, I think a lot of the Obsession palettes have been a disappointment to a lot of us. I think there's a few good ones out there, and I consistently see people singing praises of very specific ones, but this was not one of them. I've seen a ton of people declutter this. Again, I'm not going to, because there's a few shades in here that I really, really love and I find to be unique to my own collection, but I definitely don't think this was worth all the hype that went around on YouTube when they first came out. People were just falling over each other trying to get to these gemstone Obsession palettes, and I just don't think that they paid off quite as much as they should have. Favorite palette from a favorite brand. I think this might surprise you. I have 5 palettes from this brand, but my favorite palette from Natasha Denona is the Mini Star palette. I just love this. I love everything about it. I love that there's no guesswork. I love this blue-brown duochrome situation we have going on in here. I have a huge dip and I'm getting ready to hit pan on this shade, which is Bellatrix. I mean, there's a lot you can do with this palette. I use the absolute snot out of it. I have a really good dip going in this green gold shade right here. And I like that you even have different formulas within here. I like that I can do a complete eye look based on the mattes they have in here, and the fact that I can use this as an inner corner or a brow bone highlight with either of the other metallic shades. I just love this. I always travel with this palette. If I'm going overnight somewhere, this is generally the palette that I'll take with me. It's just a favorite. Even over these other two, I have the Love palette. Can't really say I love it over this one just yet because I haven't done enough with that, but I love this palette, and Natasha Denona is definitely a favorite brand. I think her eyeshadow formula is quite phenomenal, and I really like all the different textures that she has to offer in her palettes. Last but not least is your most used eyeshadow palette. Comment down below, I'll give you a moment, and let me know if you can guess which palette is my most used palette. I talk about it a ton. It just so happens to be in my Shop My Stash for this month. It is not the Persona Identity palette. Any guesses? Any guesses? It's the Lorac Mega Pro 2. I can't live without this palette. Again, it's a part of the palettes that I would immediately want to replace. Even though this is discontinued, I would want to replace this. There's a fracking squirrel out there that's just making a fuss. If you can hear it, I hope you enjoy. But anyways, I love this. I have pan on quite a few shades. I'm close to hitting pan on quite a few more shades. I've been using the absolute snot out of this month. I will say I almost put this in as my everyday palette because, like the Persona Identity palette, this is really a palette that I reach for on an everyday basis. I am a little sad. I do feel like, I mean, I've had this palette for almost 3 years, 2.5 years, something like that. And I do feel like the formula is just ever so slightly starting to change in terms of the metallic qualities of some of the shimmer shades. The mattes perform just as well, just as pigmented. But I'm glad that I'm getting use out of this currently in my Shop My Stash, and just overall I'm working on getting more use out of this year for 2020. Shameless plug, if you haven't seen my unofficial Project Pan up here. So definitely, this is my most used palette. I love every shade in this palette. I don't get a ton of use out of the blacks, but I have used them and they're good. I just don't use black eyeshadow all that often. But every other single shade in here, I love that it has the 2 rows of mattes, it has 2 rows of shimmer, I've got light to dark, and it just does every single thing I want it to do, and then some. So that's it. That is my, hopefully, quick and easy palette tag created by Allie Glines and Samantha March here on YouTube. I really love both of these ladies, so the moment that I saw them put up their videos and that they were doing a tag with each other, I was like, yes, I'm so gonna film that. So thank you to Allie and Samantha if you're watching this, which is probably unlikely. Thank you so much for creating such a fun tag. I like that this wasn't really questions, it was just sort of prompts, newest, oldest, smallest, biggest, you know, that kind of thing. It was really kind of fun to just delve into my palette drawer and figure out these answers, especially because I'm kind of longing for some of my other palettes right now because I'm limited to 4 for the month. So thank you so much for spending part of your day here with me today. I always appreciate each and every single one of you. If you're new here, very special welcome to you. I hope you will consider subscribing before you leave. If you liked what you saw, it is fun, it is free, it is easy, and it helps you find my videos Tuesday through Friday. I hope you are all staying safe and well. We are not out of the woods yet, but I love you guys. I hope you're being kind to others, and most of all to yourself. And I hope if you're wearing makeup right now, and I hope you are, that all of your makeup days are absolutely beautiful makeup days, and I will see you in my next video real soon.